So we worked on products and users. It's now time to work on the cart and the cart items again. And that will now change now that we're using MongoDB. So let me start with the cart model. Now, what is the overall goal we have here? Well, obviously, for every user we want to store a cart, right? And that user will have a cart, and that cart will then hold the products. So actually, with MongoDB, this is a great place for embedded documents because we have a strict one-to-one relation between a user and a cart, and therefore, there's no need to manage this with a reference. I can actually get rid of my cart items and my cart model so that I just have product and user, and for now also the orders. And now on the user model, there I also want to store my cart items. Now the question is how? The answer is, we got our shop.js controller, and in there, we got code to store something in a cart. Here for the user, we got the cart, and then we got the products to see what's in there, update it, and then save it back. Now we can do that with the help of the user model. Let's say on a user object, instead of just having save, I also add a new method, add to cart, something like this. Now here, add to cart would be a product I want to add to the cart, of course. Essentially, what we're doing here in shop.js already. Here, we already fetch, or we got everything we need to fetch a product, which we could then add to the cart. So I expect to get a product here, which I can add. And then in add to cart, I can have all the logic I need to find out if that product is already inside of the cart, and therefore if I just want to increase the quantity, or if it is not, and therefore I want to add it for the first time. Now to understand how this works, you must not forget that add to cart will be called on a user object, and we'll create that object with data we fetched from the database with the help of find by ID. Here we will return a user. So therefore, we just need to be able to accept more data in a constructor, for example, the cart, so that we can also store the cart in our JavaScript object here, which will be based on the data stored in the database. So now we can assume that we'll have a cart property on our user, and now we just need to find out if that cart contains a certain product already. Now, the cart will essentially be an object, let's say, that looks something like this, an object with some items. So an object which has the items array in there. So what we could do if we assume that this is the case, we could create a new constant, cart product, and then use this cart items and find, let's say, the index of a product in that cart with the same ID as the product we're trying to add again. So I'll pass a function to find index, which simply is a function JavaScript will execute for every element in the items array. And then here I want to return true if I found the right product in my items array. And this will be the case if CP, which is the product in the items array, if the underscore ID there matches the underscore ID of the product I'm trying to insert. If that is the case, so if this returns a valid index, so something else than -1, which would be the default otherwise, then I know this product already exists in a cart. And then I just need to find out what its quantity is. Now we'll do this in a second step. First of all, we can assume that there will be no products in the cart because we're just starting from scratch. So let's add the code to add a product without checking whether that product exists yet. So we can comment this out for now. And instead create a constant, maybe named updated cart, which is an object where we might have an items property, which is an array where I will now include my product. However, not just the product as I'm getting here, I also want to add a quantity field. So I'll actually say product quantity, and this is how you can add a field on the fly in JavaScript, equals 1. Now, another approach, maybe a bit more elegant than that, is that in items, you create an object with curly braces because we'll add an object here. And then you use the JavaScript spread operator, 3 dots, to pull out all properties of this object, so of the product object. And then with a comma, you can add or override a property. So here I'll add the quantity property and set it to 1. Whatever approach you choose, this will create an object which holds an items property, which is an array of, in our case, only one object, one product with an additional quantity information. And now I want to update the user to store that cart in there. So I will get access to my database with getDB, and I'll reach out to my users collection, and I'll update one user in there, and I'll update the user with this user ID here. So what I need to do is I need to accept that ID as an argument. So this underscore ID will be equal to ID, let's say. And then here I can say I want to find a user where underscore ID is equal to new, and now I'll use object ID, which I extracted up here, because I need that for the comparison, where this is equal to this underscore ID. And once I found that, I'll describe how to update. Now I'll use $set, where I pass an object which holds all the information about which field to update in which way. And here, I essentially want to keep everything as it is. I don't want to change the username or anything like that. I'll just set cart equal to updated cart. That is it. So cart, which I expect to have in a user in the database, will now receive updated cart. So this object as a new value, which will overwrite the old one. And this is important. It will not merge this with the old one. It will not merge the elements in the items array. It will simply overwrite the old cart with the new cart. Now I can return this here, this update one call. And what this should do is, well, it should update our user to add a product to the cart. For now, it will always overwrite any existing products in the cart. We'll fix this later, but for now, this should work. Now let's wire it up in the next lecture.